If you want to experience some of the best 1v1 combat duels, look no further than Trials of Valor, the indie action combat roguelike whose March 5th release came as a whisper, with its all-time peak player count number sitting at a mere 23 players. So naturally, I feel it's my responsibility to put this game on blast, because if you can look past the less than stellar graphics, Trials of Valor provides one of the best combat experiences I've seen from a 2026 release thus far. Every parry, every perfect evade feels incredible here, and that's all thanks to a coordination of effects. Well-telegraphed enemy attacks, the satisfying ting you hear when steel meets your shield and you perfect guard, and the subtle time slow effect that triggers for the briefest of moments while the enemy is thrown off balance. It's simple to be sure, but when it comes to games that have stellar parry systems, I find it's often the little things, working in concert with each other, that turn something as simple as a parry or evade into a drip feed of dopamine for the player. And built upon this solid foundation is a dual weapon system that you can freely swap between in combat, with each weapon containing its own associated skill bar that can hold up to 6 unique abilities at once. And with 3 classes to experiment with, from the warrior, rogue, and mage, in addition to 2 variations of the warrior and rogue classes, with the Templar and assassin, who have their own unique class passive and alternate starting abilities, there's a whole lot to experiment with here. Consider these endgame combat scenarios, where our character is stacked to the gills with ability options. We're the Templar, and up against a pack of wizarding goblins, who politely fight us one at a time. The Mind Goblin launches a poison projectile at us, and we evade through it with ease, but at the cost of one of our evade charges. A second projectile is on its way, but we execute a shield charge at the perfect time to deflect the shot while damaging and staggering our foe. We follow up with a few light attacks and a holy projectile spell, and place down holy ground before finishing the goblin off. But now a goblin rogue enters the fray, and comes flying at us, directly into the holy AoE that heals us and damages foes. And just before the attack lands, we cast Bulwark to grant ourselves 50 shield, allowing us to tank the damage. We land a few hits before staggering the foe with our shield charge, but find it's time to switch to our heavy-hitting greatsword. Rolling past another attack and executing a rising uppercut, we cancel into a perfect guard and follow up with 2 massive sweeping strikes. We back off now, attempting to draw the goblin back into the holy AoE, but he pops a smoke bomb and teleports directly behind us. Luckily, we were vigilant, and parry the attack with a counter skill that splits the earth open and stuns our foe, rolling out the red carpet for us to strike with reckless abandon and send our foe to the grave. But how about we drop that mask for another? We're the rogue now, and we pepper a goblin with a few swift arrows before he sends out a flaming projectile in our direction. We perfectly parry it, and because of a passive trinket, our parry generates a rain of arrows in his direction. The goblin rogue dodges out of the way and attempts to smoke bomb behind us, but we evade them just in time and swap positions. The hellish goblin is pissed, and with arms raised and hands full of sharpened steel, he launches himself airborne in our direction. We unleash a quick shot with our bow directly into the goblin's chest, before executing a slick backflip that sees us evade our attacker while sniping him from above, landing a critical hit. We ground ourselves a few paces away, but before the goblin can close the distance, we fire off an explosive arrow, knocking him back and breaking his stability bar to fully stun him, before we follow up with a final arrow that sends him to the freaking moon. The goblin's friend enters the field, so we soften him up with a few arrows just like we did the other. This time though, we execute the quick shot skill to generate an AP point, a currency needed to cast the rogue's red numbered skills. We evade an attack and situate ourselves in the far right corner, casting the ability Snipe, which deals more damage the further the target is from our position and costs 3 AP to cast. We land a massive crit, but the goblin quickly leaps in front of us, queuing up another attack. With a quick shot and well-timed evade, we swap positions and spend 2 of our AP to cast Rain of Arrows. But now the Beast Tamer calls in a flaming wolf that charges us, but we swap to our dual daggers and pop Smoke Bomb just in time, avoiding damage and slipping into position directly behind our enemy, where we spend our last 2 AP to execute Kidney Shot, which deals massive stability damage if the target is facing away from us. Luckily, he is, and spamming our normal attack to strip away the last bit of the beast tamer stability, we stun the cretin, and spam just a little bit more to land some easy crits before blasting the tamer with a fireball that applies burn and fire blast to push the target away from us just before they recover. Now the mage, well, the mage is a tricky one to play, as he utilizes orbs of fire and ice to dispatch foes. Blue orbs will always target your position, and red orbs will spawn under the enemy. Let's enter the wizard skin. An enemy archer backs into our blue orb, attempting to get out of range to fire his bow, but we trigger our blast skill to create an ice spike that staggers and knocks him back, chucking a few fireballs while he's dazed and confused, and then cast projectile shield to create a barrier on our blue orb's position, shielding us from the archer's burning arrows. From the safety of our bubble, we fire off a few more fireballs before generating our red orb under the enemy's position, which causes a firestorm to erupt around them. The archer's guard now breaks, and he's stunned and vulnerable, so we follow up with Shatter and teleport to our red orb's position, which generates a rain of fire when we arrive. We quickly follow up with a spell that increases our attack speed while standing inside the red circle before switching over to our other weapon set, where we can recall the blue orb to our position. The orb generates a small ice storm upon coming in first contact with the archer and primes us to cast our most powerful spell, Explode Orbs, which causes both orbs to hail down swarms of their respective element, catching the enemy in a blender of fire and ice. These examples are the peak of Trials of Valor's combat, but as with any roguelike, you begin every run in a valley. With just 3 starting skills, you'll traverse through a 3-tiered node pathway system with nodes that range from common to elite enemy encounters that can offer ability, charm, and gear rewards, traveling caravans where you can purchase equipment, potions, and persistent passive trinkets, and random events that often have you choose between options that both aid and hurt you, such as the node that sees your character stuck in a pile of green goo, and you must decide whether to sacrifice 50 HP to pull yourself out, or remove the boot so you can slip away unscathed. Let me tell you, I'll never let this game take away my kicks. And that's because in Trials of Valor, there's a whole nother tactical layer that feeds into the combat, and it comes in the form of armor sets. I don't know about you guys, but I have always been a huge fan of armor sets in any game. It makes the gear chase so much more exciting, and with Trials of Valor's meta progression options that can invest +1 or +2 points into a set before you even begin a run, with some luck on your side, you can work towards obtaining 2 complete armor sets. To make things even more interesting, every piece of armor is generated with a random innate effect, which turns every piece of equipment that might just be the same in name into a unique piece of gear, which makes the gear hunt a lot more involved than simply completing the set and calling it a day. With innates that can see you heal for 5 HP, or cause a fiery explosion each time you evade, to ones that grant a 10% chance to smite an enemy on every hit, which will damage them and heal you in the process, to countless others that can boost the hefty amount of stats you'll need to manage in order to round out a build. Beyond the self-explanatory stats like health, mana, attack speed, and others, there are a few key stats that are critical to Trials of Valor's combat flow. Stability is the gray bar that sits directly below your health, and it will drain every time your character receives unblocked damage. When fully depleted, you'll enter a stun state where you can't perform any actions for around 3 seconds. Naturally, you'll want to avoid ever being placed in this state by blocking or evading as often as possible. But there's a catch. You can't just infinitely block and evade. Each action has a cost. To the right of your skill bar sits your evade charges, and while you can increase the number of evades available to you by a large margin, you'll constantly be managing their cooldowns if you want to live. And by that same token, blocking costs energy, and is indicated by the yellow bar to the left of your mana. Blocking an attack, regardless of whether you perfect parry it or not, will drain the meter by the same amount, though many trinkets and innate passives on gear will reward your perfect parries by placing buffs on yourself or debuffs on the enemy, so there is still incentive to perfect parry whenever you can. And if you want to just straight up tank some hits, you can stack guard, which acts as a first layer of defense to shield yourself. And to mitigate how fast your stability meter drains, Trials of Valor's armor stat has got you covered. The tanky Holy Paladin build is alive and kicking here. For build enthusiasts, there's a lot to love here, and with combat as crisp as this, Trials of Valor is an absolute must buy and must play. That being said, at around the 15 to 20 hour mark, things do start to become somewhat repetitive, as you'll see many of the same trinkets and armor sets time and time again. And while innate passives on gear do much to alleviate this issue, what Trials of Valor really needs is just more. More everything. More trinkets, more armor sets, and more enemy types to face off against. Because outside of the game's second boss, which in my opinion is really poorly designed and just an absolute snooze fest to face off against, I don't really have any complaints when it comes to Trials of Valor's combat and the systems that feed into it. I love what the developer has done here, and now I just want more of it. The good news is that Trials of Valor is consistently receiving updates, with one in the imminent future teasing new enemy types to square off against, and the developer has an active Discord community where you can ask questions or give suggestions about what you'd like to see added or changed. You can pick this one up on Steam at a base price of $18.99 USD, though you can snag it for just a few dollars shy of that until the sale ends on March 19. It's been tough going trying to find the hidden gems that have released in these early months of 2026, but I'm happy to say Trials of Valor is the first release of 2026 to hold my attention hostage, and continues to stoke it when I think of what this game could become with just a little more content density.